You are listening to How to Get Over Your Ex, episode number 269. 6 life-changing lessons to create your bigger and better life in 6 months. Welcome to How to Get Over Your Ex, a podcast on getting over your ex without it just taking time. I'm your host, breakup coach Dorothy. Let's turn your pain into power and your heartbreak into happy. All right. I want to take a moment and just start with this is so important to me because um, it's important to me that we start with what is a bigger and better life. This is a concept that I talk a lot about because it's just so important when it comes to your healing journey. When it comes to getting over your ex, it's really not about just getting over someone. In my mind, it is really about building a life that is better than the life that you either imagined or actually had with your ex. And this really started in my own personal breakup journey. When I was going through my big breakup in 2016, it was one of like the biggest things to me was the fact that I felt like this life that I had envisioned with him was no longer going to be a part of my reality. And that was a really hard pill for me to swallow, and I hated that. And so it all of a sudden clicked one day where I was just like, you know what? This is the life that I want. I have to go out and create it for myself. I have to go out and create it and not only create it, but I wanted to create it in a way where no one could ever take it away from me again. Like I never wanted to be dependent on someone specific being in or not in my life to create outcomes that I wanted to create. And at the time, I was 26 years old, which now feels like so young. But then I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, I've got a timer and all of the things, which is funny to think about now. But, you know, I had my whole world kind of in front of me, but yet I felt like my bigger and better life felt so far away. I really wanted, there were all these outcomes that I wanted. I remember wanting a lifestyle that, my ex had introduced me to. I wanted to be able to go on the boat. I wanted to be able to live in Florida. I wanted to be able to um, have a career where I could work anywhere that I wanted to. I wanted, of course, I wanted a partner, a significant other who loved me even more and showed me love in a different way than my ex had shown me love. I wanted to be a priority to somebody. There were all these things that I could imagine as my bigger and better life that really felt like, oh my gosh, if I had that, would I be so hung up on my ex? And if I had that, what would my life be like? So long story short, that really started me on this track of how do I go out and create that in a way, again, where no one can take it away from me? How do I go out and create that in a way where it's never really reliant on somebody else being in my life to have the things that I want? Um, okay, so love that. I want to cover, again, the reason I'm covering what a bigger and better life is because when I tell those stories, when I share that, I think a lot of times there are some misconceptions that come up about what a bigger and better life is. So let's talk about what a bigger, better life is, and then we're also going to go over what it's not. So what it is this is a life that is filled with people, places, things, and experiences that feel like me, that are very much me. Um, I don't know if you guys had this experience in your breakup, but for myself personally, I just remember um, I wasn't really my authentic self. And I don't blame myself for that. I was so young. I started dating my ex at, I think 20, no, 19. So I really grew up with my ex from 19 to 26. And he shaped a lot of the things, like a lot of my interests, right? And I remember the example that I give so often on the podcast is football. Trying to play fantasy football, being into football, and like, of course, that was fun. And when I was in the moment, I was like, yes, I love this. But really, I was doing it because I loved spending time with my ex. I loved spending time with my partner. totally fine, totally makes sense. However, that was not like an authentic desire of mine. That wasn't something that was truly aligned with who I was, and it didn't really feel like me. And so something big that I noticed through the breakup was like, oh my gosh, wow. Multiple Sundays have passed and I haven't watched a single football game and didn't even think about it. It didn't even like hit me. It didn't even, I didn't even realize it. And so making sure when it comes to your bigger and better life that you are, surrounded with people, places, things, and experiences that truly feel like you. And sometimes that takes some rediscovering. Sometimes that, we don't know what that is, and that's okay. That's not a problem. It just takes a lot of unraveling, unwinding to then rediscover and start looking at and start exploring like what are my interests, regardless of who's in or not in my life. A bigger and better life is also non-attachment. So I have what I want and I do what I want, regardless of who's in or not in my life. It sounds very like selfish when I first read that statement, but I don't mean it in that way. I mean it in a way of I feel free enough to do what I want and be who I want to be and say things I want to say, and just be, again, your most authentic version of yourself. And it's really hard to do that when we're attached to people, places, and things. When we're attached to something, it's really hard for us to make decisions. I think about all the different ways that I have moved through the attachment cycle, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But anytime you're attached to a specific person, a specific, career, a specific amount of money, any sort of attachment, it makes it difficult sometimes to be and do the things that feel most aligned to you. The bigger and better life is also the full 50-50 experience, the highs and the lows, right? So I think the misconception here is that the bigger and better life is going to be all perfect and rainbows and daisies. We're going to get to this place where we're happy all of the time. We're feeling passionate all of the time. We're feeling great all of the time. And that is not the case. I think your bigger and better life is filled with emotion because that is the human experience. And sometimes that's even higher highs and lower lows, depending on your attachment levels. Sometimes it's a neutrality that can feel boring or almost uncomfortable because it's so neutral. But you've got to realize that it's not going to be all perfect, all great, all of the time, just because you've created your bigger and better life. Your BBL, as we call it in our Bigger and Better Life Mastermind, is also emotional maturity, right? So learning to live in emotional maturity, learning to realize that you are the master of your emotions. You have control over how you feel and how you think, which is get over your ex 101, right? Connection and human interaction. So I think one of the biggest things when it comes to your bigger and better life, what we do in terms of getting over your ex and inside of the Get Over Your Ex program is very much happening in an isolated container. You're doing a lot of thought work, you're doing a lot of self-help, self-development work, and it's happening in a container where it's very isolated to just you, which is so good and it's so important. And that is the time that you need to again, without the outside noise, who am I? What do I want? What do I stand for? All of that is so important. But when it comes to your bigger and better life, that includes human interaction. That includes connection. It includes passion. It includes deeper levels of work because you're not doing it in a container of just yourself. You have other people and other things going on around you. And then also fulfillment of who you truly are, living a life that is magically aligned to your soul. So we've got the way that, a lot of my beliefs, and this doesn't mean you have to subscribe to them, but the way that I think about my life and who I am and what I'm doing here on this earth as a human being is that I have a soul. My soul is, all telling. It has a lot of wisdom that my brain, the mind, doesn't have. The soul communicates with me through my body, through talking, through nudges, through wiggles, through, poles. And so I think what's so fascinating is when I'm living in my bigger and better life, that's really me fulfilling who I'm meant to be when I come here. I came here as a soul to live in a human body and have a human experience. And so that bigger and better life is just the physical representation of my soul's desires and why my soul came here to experience life, which to me gets me giddy and excited to know, oh my gosh, my soul chose this ahead of time. My soul is here to experience this. And so, of course, I'm all deserving and all, worthy of my most authentic desires. Okay. So what is not a bigger and better life? Like we mentioned, it's not feeling great all the time. That is not the point. We have different circumstances that happen in life, even when you have your bigger and better life, even when you have everything you want. I think this is a very fascinating thing too, is you can have everything you want, the perfect career, the perfect house, all of it, and you're not going to feel great all of the time. And that can be so jarring to, humans who have been go, 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 do, accomplish, 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 because you've set out to accomplish all these things, and then you get there and you arrive and you have all the things that you ever thought you needed, and all of a sudden you're not feeling great. You're not feeling happy all of the time, and you're just so shocked and confused. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It just means like that is the culture and environment that we've grown up in. And what do we want to do with that? How can we live in our bigger and better life and knowing that it's not going to be great 100% of the time? Your bigger and better life is not superficial. No matter what your authentic desires are, it has nothing to do with being superficial, or I think I put lavish in here somewhere. I'll just have them all come out. Yeah, the lavish lifestyle and superficial. It doesn't mean that we're just talking about outcomes and creating all these different outcomes in life of, I've got the car that I want and the career that I want and all of these things. It doesn't have to do with the outcomes. It has to do with who you've become to create those outcomes. Your bigger and better life is not perfect. There are going to be things that happen in life that feel heartbreaking or, are full of grief. And it's not constant positivity, right? It's not what some people call toxic positivity. It is not constantly positive vibes and high frequencies. We move through a lot of different things. And then lastly, I talked about this a little bit already, but isolation and toxic individuality, your bigger and better life. When I say, this is like such a common misconception. When I say we're going out and we're going to build your bigger and better life in a way where no one can take it away from you again, I don't mean that we're building a life by yourself. You're not doing this on your own by yourself. You are very much doing this you're co-creating with the universe. If you are someone who wants a partner, you are building a life with another person, but you are doing it in a way where you realize that if that person leaves, you still get to have everything you desire. And I was actually thinking about this morning because someone was talking to me about marriage and prenups, and I didn't sign a prenup. And I think people are like kind of surprised by that. I'm not surprised by that at all because I want to build a life with another person. That doesn't mean that my bigger and better life is going to be gone if my husband chooses to leave. Like if my husband chose to divorce me, I know in my bones that I can recreate anything I've ever created. So even if he took it all, which wouldn't be the case, but even if he did, I'm like, I have no problem knowing in my bones that I can recreate everything that I need to recreate, and it's going to be even better the second time around. And so that is the difference between we're not building bigger and better life, or your bigger and better life in isolation to just you. It's not getting good on your own. It's learning how to, is this an authentic desire? Is being in a partnership an authentic desire? Do I want that? Yes or no? And if I do, we go after that and we create that while also having your beautiful Sunday on the side. And that includes your capability and understanding and knowing that you can create whatever you want anytime you want, regardless of who's in your life or not. Okay. So the last 6 months, we have had a program going on called the Bigger and Better Life Mastermind. Now, this was introduced last year at the beginning of the year. One of my previous clients reached out to me saying, "Hey, I really want to work with you more. I really want to work on my bigger and better life. And here are the things that I'm wanting to work on. Is this something that you're interested in doing?" And I thought about it. I took months to think about it. And we came up with the Bigger and Better Life Mastermind. And I was like, I really like this. I want to do this and I want to do this with a good group of people. So I decided to take on, a number of individuals, Bravehearts, who have already graduated the Get Over Your Ex program. These were people who I had worked with in the past, and I wanted to spend 6 months with them amplifying their bigger and better life. And the way that I wanted to do this was a little bit different than the Get Over Your Ex program. I really wanted to create an environment that was not just me as the teacher. I love teaching. I will always be there teaching. And so, of course, we had every call, the typical standard version of these calls looked like a mini lesson at the beginning and deep dive coaching throughout the rest of the call. And it was so fun because it was a container in which I could bring all of these new concepts that I've been personally using for the last however many years that don't make sense for me to share inside of the Get Over Your Ex program as often, because really that program is very centered around a very specific thing that you're accomplishing and doing and creating. And the course content and the materials there are already just enough, and they're exactly like set up the way that they need to be to get the outcome that you need to get. But this container of like the last 6 months with the Bigger and Better Life Mastermind has been so fun because we're taking the principles in the Get Over Your Ex program and almost taking it next level. It's almost like a 201 course. So pretending like Get Over Your Ex is the 101 course in college. The Bigger and Better Life Mastermind was the 201 version of that. And it's really amplifying your bigger and better life. So we did a number of things. We were able to start applying the inner voice a lot within our coaching sessions. We were applying human design principles because it's such a small container. We've got, we had 6 in the last round, and I'll cap this round at 10. And so because we have that small container, it allowed us to look at each individual person's human design and really get to know each individual's not only inner voice, but also their design and how it applies to them and what they're working on. It was very much deep dive coaching, so less centered around teaching and lessons and absorbing course content and material, and much more about getting the coaching that you need in the moment so that you can take it and apply it in your day-to-day, which was so fun. We had applied conversations, very much, again, like what I was just mentioning. It's like you do a deep dive coaching session, and then you don't go on to the next module. You actually apply what you're learning and then get feedback and information from that and come back and, again, get more deep dive coaching on it. And then I think the beauty of a mastermind is the peer-to-peer support, where you have people from all different backgrounds with all different perspectives, all different points of view, not just me and your point of view, but you've got all of your peers who have all been through the Get Over Your Ex program, who all know the principles of the model, who all are working towards building and amplifying that bigger and better life. And it's open dialogue and open communication and open conversations. And so I think that's the beauty of it, is it wasn't just, my mind, but it's all of these beautiful minds together working cohesively towards a common goal, which was so, so beautiful. So in those past 6 months, there's a number of lessons that I felt like I wanted to talk through. And so the way that I frame today is I'd like to go through individual by individual and share with you the lessons that I saw them move through. And then I condensed them into themes so that today, after I share you by individual, I'm going to share the common lessons that I saw and how you can take them today and start applying them to your life. Even if you're just still working on getting over your ex, that's totally fine. Take these lessons and apply them to whatever situation you're in. Okay. I love it. So good. So the first Braveheart that I want to move through, and I just, as a reminder, each of these individuals are working on different, what we might call like topics or themes, intentions. They had different intentions for the 6 months. Each of them had a project for the 6 months, and each of them were setting weekly intentions as well. So this Braveheart specifically was working primarily on dating. And she started out saying effortless dating, but it really turned into intentional dating and getting really intentional about the way she was approaching dating. And originally she said effortless, but then she wanted to be more of an active participant in her dating experience. And so she switched it to intentional dating. And her big, like, three lessons that really came through to me that were just so powerful is that by the end of our 6 months together, what I think is so freaking cool is she has a different vibe and energy about her when it comes to dating, like completely. Pre 6 months in April, she had a lot of mind drama about the apps and what about the apps and do I need to be on the apps? And she really wanted to meet her partner organically, but she felt like I'm doing nothing if I'm just sitting at home watching her favorite shows. And um, it completely changed, not because she changed her strategy. I mean, she definitely switched up her strategy multiple times. However, what really changed in the background were these three beliefs. She found three truths and she actually believes these. I know that many of you are like, oh my God, I want to believe this, but I don't actually believe it. These are things that she's like, I wanted to believe and she now believes. I am worthy and deserving of a partnership that I want. I believe I'll have and get that partnership, and I can trust my process to get what I want. Now, those three beliefs in combination with one another create beautiful strategy. They create beautiful action, and you can see it and you can feel it when you talk to her. It is absolutely insane. So what I gather from this and what I think is so cool is remembering that your self-identity really matters when it comes to action and strategy. It doesn't really matter what strategy she uses. If she's not believing those three things, whatever strategy she's using in terms of dating comes across as like frantic, worried, panicked, discouraged, helpless. But when she has those three beliefs about herself, the strategy, again, still doesn't matter, but she is so much more grounded and calm and easeful in what she's doing. Braveheart number two. So this Braveheart started out, her ride has been wild to watch. So she started out wanting to write a novel. And she honestly, when she came to me about the mastermind, she's like, I want to do this, 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 this. She had like 17 things going on about what she wanted to work on. And I love that about her. And we landed on writing a novel. And she's like, I'm going to write a novel. But what was so fascinating is that throughout the process of the 6 months, she had a lot of life circumstances that completely changed. She went through a breakup. She had multiple job changes. She had, a work thing that came up, a huge work project that came up that was also then the timeline was condensed. It was just so fascinating to watch because the ultimate thing that I noticed and witnessed in her was she had everything stripped away from her. Everything that she, built her identity around really was stripped away. And she had to learn, like, I am enough and I am worthy without any of those things. And that is so hard. It's so easy to believe in yourself and it's so easy to feel worthy and enough when you are actually like living in that and you have those things. I think the real lesson and the real journey is like when you don't have those external outcomes to lean on, can you still believe in yourself? Can you still feel enough without those things? And she did it. It was so beautiful. And when she presented her project at the retreat that we had 2 weekends ago, I like could have cried. She said, the way that I want to present my project today is I just want to stand here in front of you and I'm going to say that I'm enough. Who I am, raw, vulnerable, everything right here. This is who I am and this is enough. And that was just like such a touching, I get chills. I get like the goosebumps thinking about it because it was really about, I mean, we thought it was going to be about a novel. And her journey really became about worthiness and enoughness and feeling that fully in her bones and in her body and experiencing that on a completely new level. And it was beautiful. Braveheart number three. So this is a Braveheart who's super fun. She's like, she, we came up with at the retreat this idea of energetic signature or your signature vibe. And her signature vibe is like hot pink, electric, just, it's so cool. And when I first met her, she was in all black everything. She works in a very masculine style job. And she's really allowed herself, her biggest thing was really like, I just want to listen to my inner voice for a full 6 months to live out my most authentic self. Like, what would that look like? What would change in my life? And she moved through a lot of different lessons around men, around her family, around her children, things like that when she was listening to her inner voice and becoming her most authentic self. And she created, again, like when we were at the retreat together, she was in person at this retreat with us, and you could see her inner voice, which she calls her inner star, um, just come through. It was who she was. That like you could just so clearly tell and see she's living out who she's meant to be. I mean, and it's so cool to be around those people. I'm sure we've all had that experience where you're like, that person is literally living into who they're supposed to be. And it's so fun to watch. It's so fun to see. And then it's even more fun to like be living it. And so that was really cool. She really learned her energetic signature, her signature vibe, and she learned how to like live in it day to day. Okay, so Braveheart number four, starting her new business and really seeing herself as an expert. This was very empowering to watch. Just with the background that I have of like starting my own business and seeing someone start from almost scratch again, it was very fun to like witness this person's journey. Um, I think the biggest thing for this individual is really learning that, who she is enough. Really seeing herself as the expert, really learning that she doesn't need to learn a bunch more other things to feel confident in herself. It's really about, you know, feeling like enough, feeling like the expert, recognizing your own expertise and leaning into that and leaning into your authority while starting this new business. And she came from a background where we had already been, like I said, I've worked with all of these individuals, either in the Get Over Your Ex program or one-on-one or in some sort of capacity in the past. And her biggest thing was like learning that there's no right or wrong answers, there's no right or wrong decisions, and really stepping into a position of authority and expertise, not only for yourself, but when you're starting a business, you have to also step into that for other people, which can be very, I don't know if the word's jarring or like rocking, but like it's not an easy feat. And that's what she spent her 6 months working on and really leaning into. And what was so cool about that was at the retreat that we had 2 weeks ago was she got to deliver her work to our group. And it was, again, so powerful. I get the chills thinking about it. And I want to cry, but I'm like, she delivered her work to the girls in the retreat. And it was like, you are so doing what you were meant to do, right? She was so doing the work she was meant to do. And again, you could see her living into herself, just like we were talking about with the Braveheart before with the inner star. She was who she was meant to be. She was being the version of herself that we could all see from the outside looking in. And that is the power of living your bigger and better life. Braveheart number five. So Braveheart number five, hold on one second. We've got a barking dog. I'm going to close my door. Okay. So Braveheart number five, she was really working on failure, feeling like she's a failure based off of external validation, really wrapped up in other people's opinions of what she was doing and really learning how to, navigate away from that and determine her success and determine her worthiness and her enoughness. Again, from the inside out, because we're starting to see a theme, right? Of living into ourselves, leaning into our worthiness and our enoughness, regardless of what other people say. And this was very much wrapped up in her job and her career. And she also, something that I forgot to list on here, was really leaning into rest and working on like, how can I rest for myself? How can I create more rest and more space in my life? And then we've got Braveheart number 6. So this individual was, there were so many lessons that I saw this individual move through. She really was getting to know herself. She had been in the Get Over Your Ex program. She did a lot of deconditioning there, but she had so much more deconditioning she could do of like undoing the beliefs that she grew up with, undoing the people pleasing and undoing the things that she was doing for other people that weren't really aligned with her. So getting to know herself so she could stop people pleasing and set clear boundaries that she actually kept, right? Because it's one thing to set a boundary. It's another thing to like follow through on the boundary. She had to work on letting go of shame and selfishness around her authentic desires. What was so beautiful is like for the first time ever, I got to witness her just say what she actually wanted. And she had, I just remember working with her in the past and she had such a hard time even just saying what it is that she wanted. But like wealth was one of them, feeling like she had a hot body was another, right? Just like allowing herself to actually, you know, want what she wants, which is a lot easier said than done. She also had to work on how to make decisions that affected her kids while remaining true to herself. So, a part of her having a hard time following through with who she was and what she wanted was a lot of her decisions also influence her children, obviously, right? So learning how to untangle shame and untangle that selfishness and determine, is this an authentic desire? Is it not? Being clear about that and then doing the work around, is this being selfish or not? Right? And then one of the things that she mentioned at the retreat when she was presenting her project that I loved was she really leaned into the delusional stuff that I talk about and that I teach on, right? Like everything's a delusion. And a lot of what I teach is like, can we be delusional enough to like believe? Because we're delusional enough to like not believe. We're delusional enough to say this might not happen or worry about it not happening. Can we be delusionally in the opposite direction? And she was like, I get to pick these different delusions. So what are the delusions that I get to choose? And that was a really fun kind of aha moment that she brought up in the retreat when we were talking about our projects. So before I move into the lessons learned, I just want to share with you, because I think this is so profound for individuals inside the Get Over Your Ex program to notice, is that there were new beliefs formed. Just pause with that for a second. This wasn't as much about outcomes as it is about the beliefs that are formed. So thinking about, if I could believe anything about myself or my life, what would it be? And these are beliefs that were not being believed 6 months ago. Like these were not things that they thought of when they thought of themselves 6 months ago. Whereas today, they are living in full belief of this, of these different ones that I'm going to share with you. And that's so powerful because speaking about self-identity, right? They've created new identities for themselves. They've created new identities, new versions of themselves. It's like when they wake up in the morning, their default costume that they're wearing is no longer the costume they were wearing 6 months ago. It's something completely different. Maybe instead of costume, use the word skin. We're wearing different skin. We are a different human being. They've reprogrammed their brain. They have a completely new program or app running on their brain because they now believe these new things. So I want to share all of them with you. I am enough. This is huge. It's like, what would my life be like if I actually believed I am enough? Isn't that crazy to think about? I can be I can be me no matter what environment I'm in. Not everyone is meant to go where I'm going. Ooh, I'm worthy even when I'm not doing something. it's easier to be in a relationship than single and vice versa. So I love this one because this one was something that um, the inner star Braveheart had mentioned was she was really working on she said it's interesting because I know a lot of people inside of the Get Over Your Ex program, they have access to the Get Over Your Ex program while they're also in the Bigger and Better Life Mastermind. So they watch some of these coaching call replays. And a lot of times they notice like, someone coming out of a breakup, they're like, it's easier to be in a relationship than it is to be single. Whereas, this specific Braveheart had worked through that so much so that she went to the other end of the spectrum where she was like, it's so much easier to be single than to be in a relationship. So therefore, like, I don't even know if I want to be in a relationship anymore, which reminds me of the kids thing that I did, right? Like I believe life without kids was like not as fulfilling. Then I go all the way to the end of the spectrum of like life, without kids is way better. And I'm so excited to just not have children. And then here I am about to give birth. And so we have to find like that happy medium. And it's really about believing whatever thoughts serve you with whatever circumstances you have been given in this moment. So she really learned that lesson of, how do I flip flop from one end of the spectrum to the other and find a happy medium? Another belief was my voice is the only one that matters. I am open to things truly being easy. I don't have to achieve to be enough. I am capable of getting stuff done. I'm getting stronger every day. I can do stuff for myself. Raising my frequency is available to me. Everything I'm doing is leading me to my partner. I am worthy and deserving of a partnership that I want, and I believe I'll have and get that partnership. I can trust my process to what I want. Beautiful thoughts. Because can we just take a moment and remind ourselves the quality of your thinking will determine the quality of your life. So think about the quality of these thoughts. They're brilliant. So think about the quality of life they are living. So good. Okay, like I said, I love next steps, how-tos. I love consolidating information for you. So I took all 6 of these lessons over the last 6 months and I consolidated them into 6 simple lessons that you can take today, no matter where you are in your getting over your ex journey or building your bigger and better life, right? So lesson number 1, being your most authentic you, it feels good and it gets you the most authentic life. So and that life is specifically curated for you. Remember, this is all happening for you, not to you. So don't resist being you. Don't resist your current circumstances. Embrace them, embrace yourself, no matter where you're at, and no matter what other people say or do. This requires non-judgment of ourselves. Wherever you are, it's so perfect for you. And can we allow ourselves to start listening to that inner voice, that inner being, that intuition, and try to follow through in it? And when we don't, being kind to ourselves about it and recognizing the lesson in it, right? Be your most authentic you that you can possibly be, no matter how different, no matter how out there it possibly is for other people. Lesson number 2. So you are the only one that knows you best. This is all about self-authority. I love being a teacher. So I do love structure and here's how you do it and here's how you don't. And I give you a lot of that inside the Get Over Your Ex program. But I feel like taking it to another level is learning how to do that for yourself. Cultivating a relationship with your inner voice to begin guiding you in your decision making so that you can watch how life unfolds for you instead of being told what to do and whether or not it fits or it doesn't fit. And I think that is in terms of getting over your ex and the Get Over Your Ex program and getting started on that journey, we need that foundation. We need that base. You need to be told what to do and when to do it and how to get that work done and exploring those tools. But in the Bigger and Better Life Mastermind, it's about taking those tools and using them at your own pace, in your own way. It's taking additional tools that are outside of that with inner voice, human design work, all the kind of stuff that we've talked about, and implementing it in a completely new way. And in scenarios that aren't necessarily about getting over your ex, right? And so this is learning for you, right? Instead of trying to manipulate or force specific things into your life. What is for you will unfold for you. And again, just knowing that you know you best and learning how to cultivate that self-authority and that self-trust so that you can stand on your own 2 feet and you don't always need a teacher or a guide, which is so crazy to think about, right? Lesson number 3. So thought work, mindset work is just the beginning, my friends. There are tools that help you and take you even deeper in our voice work, human design work, somatic, nervous system healing. When you have really mastered thought work, it feels good. I love mastering thought work. I am very much like a human from like my shoulders up. I love like the brain. I love the mind. I love using thought work to create results. I love using thought work to change how I feel, and the quality of my thoughts determine the quality of my life and all of that. But we've got to remember that your body is a part of this human experience. Having a calm nervous system is important. Having body work is important. And then taking everything to a new level with your self-authority, learning how to make decisions for yourself in a way that feels good to you so that you can trust you. That doesn't mean you never talk it out with other people. I'm a self-projected projector in human design, which means that's the way I make decisions, is talking it out, sometimes with other people and sometimes on my own. But it's learning how to take this work deeper. And again, it's not just thought work, it's so much bigger than that. And so what do you feel like exploring, right? Begin to explore what feels fun to you and start learning to use these tools outside of your isolated bubble, but with other people. Lesson number 4, it's not about the outcomes, which is so hard to hear. I have a story that goes along with this, but I think when it comes to this idea of it's not about the outcomes, it's truly about the process and who you're becoming. I just remember hearing this from Brooke Castillo years ago, over and over and over again. Her and then all the coaches that I had after that, everyone just kept telling me, it's not about the outcome. It's not about the outcome. And I'm like, yeah, says the person who's married, has children, has millions of dollars, a thriving business. Sure, it's not about the outcomes. Like, I didn't trust that and I didn't believe that. But what I did realize is through lived experience, I would accomplish one thing. I would create the thing that I think is going to make me feel better. I would get the outcome that I want. And I realized I didn't feel any different. And it was just such an interesting experience. And what I have found is actually a cycle for myself, which I taught inside of the Bigger and Better Life Mastermind and inside of Get Over Your Ex program, is the attachment cycle. Like, I really had to learn not to be attached to something, because even when I created something, if I was attached to it, I found myself having to go through the cycle still. It would leave my life until I got to the point where I was no longer attached to it. And so why I'm saying this is I want you to think about this, whether you're getting over your ex or building your bigger and better life. Who you're becoming is much more important than any of the outcomes we try to create in life. And if you have resistance to that statement, please just know that I get it, that I understand it. But would you play with the idea? Because like I said, many of my clients have created the outcomes that they want only to realize they don't feel any different. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're going to have to do the work now or later. So you can either gruel through the process and hate the process and then get the outcome, or you can learn to love the process and learn to focus more on who you're becoming. And what happens is you will attract and create the outcomes that you want faster, easier, and in a more aligned way. And then you will actually enjoy having the results in a completely different way. So profound, so good. So whatever outcome you're going towards, whether it's getting over your ex or, changing your career or making more money than your ex, or whatever, outcome is you're gravitated towards, please remember that it's more about who you are becoming Who do you need to become to have and hold that outcome? And focus more on that than the actual outcome. So important. Lesson number 5, the attachment cycle. I know I've referenced it multiple times. We've got a podcast episode about it. You've got a deep dive workshop in the Get Over Your Ex program about it. And I, cover it very thoroughly in the Bigger and Better Life Mastermind. But the attachment cycle, inside of this mastermind, they really deep dove into this cycle and looking at each stage. If you don't remember, there's 5 stages. There's awareness that there's attachment there, feeling attached, whether it's to your ex or to a specific outcome that you're trying to create. For example, the one who is working on effortless dating, right? She felt attached to having a partner in the beginning. You will then get to this place of you have resistance. After you become aware, you have resistance to exploring that attachment. It's just like a natural human experience of I don't want to resist or I don't want to explore not having this, right? So there's resistance there. Then you've got curiosity. So you start to get curious and you're able to ask yourself multiple questions about that attachment. You then get to a place of releasing it. And what's so cool is that once you've released attachment, then that's when you'll notice this thing, whatever it is, whether it's a relationship or a career, whatever outcome, that's when you'll notice that thing manifest. And I've seen this cycle play in multiple areas of my life. This is a whole separate lesson that you can, check out on your own time. But they really learned how to work through this attachment cycle, learning to be the type of person who truly releases attachment. And they each did it in multiple different ways with multiple different areas of their life. So learning how to move through this cycle not only will get you over your ex, but in every aspect of life that you find yourself getting attached to, which is something that you're going to see multiple times in your life. And you could start something, you could start by not being attached to your partner and then later become attached. And how do we move through that attachment cycle without, losing the partner is such a beautiful thing as well. So love that lesson. And then lesson number 6 is taking time to integrate. So this is all about integration, not constantly up-leveling, but learning to live in and be in your life. Self-help is so addicting, you guys. I'm saying this because it's me. I love constantly reinventing myself, looking at who I am and where I'm going and what do I want to create. It's fun. It's exciting. It's exhilarating. But what I'm noticing of coming off of, I've been doing this work since 2017, 2018, however many years that is up until now, I have been constantly reinventing myself. And now I have a lot of the things that I've ever wanted. And everyone's like, well, what's next? And what's next? And what's next? And I am all on board for it. There's nothing wrong with that. However, I really felt like I just noticed in myself and in my clients in the Bigger and Better Life Mastermind, what would it be like to just live with what we've worked on? What would it be like to live with this version of ourselves that we've just created? They're brand new versions of ourselves. Can we give ourselves 3 months, 6 months to explore that version of ourselves before turning around again and being like, let's work on this? And the example that we talked about at the retreat 2 weeks ago was a house remodel. Instead of, we don't remodel a house to then just say, okay, let's remodel it again. We remodel a house and then we live in it for an extended period of time. That doesn't mean that there aren't maintenance things going on or, a project here and there. But when you've remodeled it, it's done. It's complete for an extended period of time while you live in it and explore it and be it. So instead of remodeling the house to remodel it again, how can we live in the newly remodeled house saying that the house is us, right? How can we be in the newly remodeled home? How can we be in the newly remodeled self without constantly trying to up level? Let's try on the version of ourselves that we just created, because just like we saw all of those new beliefs, what is it like to live in a life having all those new beliefs about ourselves? And can we pause with that and live in that and be that and integrate that? So that's what they're doing for the next 6 months until the next mastermind opens on April April 2025 is when we'll start, and it will end September of 2025. Well, I guess more like October 1st, 2025. And we'll do another retreat and we'll, all work together again. And I'm just so excited.
If you're loving the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast and you want to learn how to get over your ex in 3 months or less to build a life better than the one you thought you had with your ex, I would like to personally invite you to my next group course where we take everything you've learned here on the podcast and apply it to your life. Come check it out at www.lifecoachdorothy.com.